Okay, so when you start talking about coffee as it relates to different countries' sort of intangible cultural heritage, we commonly get caught up in names such as Italy and Ethiopia, and for good reason. But today, I want to draw your attention to the coffee heritage of Austria. And we're going to do that by looking at a recipe called the Einspänner. Let's mix it up. Okay, so we're gonna get into the name of this drink and the heritage behind it, but first, let's make it. So you need three things. You need some cocoa powder, sweet vanilla whipped cream, and a double shot of espresso. So to put this together, you take your double shot of espresso and cover it in whipped cream. And then we're going to take our cocoa powder and put it in a sieve. Just give it a little tap on top. And that is the Einspänner. All right, well, let's give it a taste. Wow, I got all over my face. Okay, so it's a shot of espresso with sweet whipped cream on top. Now, you can sweeten the shot. I personally like to have my espresso unsweetened a lot of the time, and you've already got the sweetness in the whipped cream, so I chose not to sweeten that. I don't know how common it is to have the espresso unsweetened in Austria, but from everything I read, it's optional, so it's kind of a personal taste thing. So of course, it's sweet, luscious, soft, and then very, very strong espresso on the back end. You get the cocoa on the nose. It's a delightful little shot of espresso. But as I promised, I want to talk about the heritage of this recipe. So it's called an Einspänner, which I apologize if my pronunciation is off, but I think that's how you're supposed to say it. Einspänner, which translates from German as single horse, meaning a single horse carriage. So this recipe dates back to before the automobile, before cars, right? Way before any of that. The main form of transportation would have been horse-drawn carriages, horseback, or on foot. So an Einspänner was a carriage that was drawn by only one horse. And I think it correlates to what would have been called a hansom cab in England at the same time, which, by the way, we're talking like late 18th century up all the way through the 19th century. So you're talking a two-wheel carriage with maybe room for 2 or 3 passengers at most on the inside. So the way that this drink relates to the Einspänner carriage is that when you're either riding a horse or driving a carriage that's only drawn by one horse, you only need one hand to control the reins. That would have been very, very common. Whether you had 2 separate reins, each one going to one side of the horse's face, or a loop rein, you would hold both of them in one hand, leaving your other hand free for a cup of coffee. The problem is that even in the most luxurious of carriages, it would have been a pretty bumpy ride, so a big old cup of coffee is going to want to spill everywhere. Hence the Einspänner. So because this is a double shot of espresso with a huge layer of foam on top, it doesn't really want to spill. I mean, you can see jiggling it around, the foam is moving. Even if I go up and down like that, right, it doesn't want to go anywhere. So this is very safe to have in one hand in a bumpy ride as you're headed out to work in the morning. And so this drink caught on with carriage drivers, and I would assume also not just with the drivers of Einspanners, but also with Austrian coffee culture in general, because this drink has survived and the Einspänner honestly hasn't. As far as coffee drinks go, it's really good. It's really enjoyable. You get that lovely interplay between the super hot espresso and the very cold, sweet whipped cream. I think if I was going to drink these all the time, I would definitely need to trim my mustache. But yeah, a very, very cool coffee recipe. So like I said, Austria has a very rich coffee culture, which means that it's not just one thing, right? This doesn't just encompass what you would get in cafes in Vienna. But the Einspänner is very unique to Austria. It is one of the aspects of their culture that nobody else has. There are lots of other cultures that would have a shot of espresso with milk in it, such as the macchiato, which thanks to Howard Schultz is now almost a meaningless term. But originally the macchiato would have been a shot of espresso with a little bit of steamed milk in it, and so you would mark it it with foam so that on a big cafe bar, you would know which one had a little bit of milk in it. You would mark it macchiato. So you could say it's kind of similar, but as far as where this came from, why it was invented, why people drank it, and the name behind it, this is pure Austria, and it's incredible. Oh, that's so good. So if you have an idea for a coffee drink or drinks that I should try from other cultures, please leave a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.